Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Vito X Dino. This is episode 33. Good God. Do you realize that in 20 episodes, we'll have actually less than 20 episodes, we'll have done this for a year? My name is Vito Delsante. His name is Dean Haspiel.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dean Haspiel. Yeah, isn't 33, every couple of episodes, isn't there a significance to the number?
Uh, I mean, other than being a football player's number, I can't think of anything like major for
Didn't
33.
was didn't Jesus die at 33? Or
It's
was that
33 or
32?
32. I think it's 32.
Is it 32?
I think so.
All right. Whatever.
I only read the Bible once. Like, what do
I've
I
never.
know? Um, Now I have to find out.
I also feel like 33 is a significant age for other uh famous people. I did Jimi Hendrix die at 33, or am I getting that completely wrong? Is it 28
27.
maybe?
27.
27.
The 27 Club.
Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix.
Jim
Oh,
Morrison.
Jim Morrison. And what about Nirvana?
Yep. And Amy Winehouse.
What's his name? Nirvana. Oh, you can't
The
say the
Kurt
band.
Cobain.
Kurt Cobain. Okay,
Yeah.
Amy Winehouse at 27.
So,
27 years old, man.
apparently Jesus was between 33 and 39. I was completely wrong.
Oh, they don't even. Okay, 33 and 39.
And I don't even know if they even say how old he was in the Bible. So I mean, I definitely wouldn't know that from reading that. I think it's just all conjecture and like
Sure,
carbon dating the Shroud of Turin or something like that.
sure. But I mean, and 39 was Jack Benny's eternal age.
That's right.
And that's the joke that as you get older, you just stay at 39 or something like
Yes.
that, right? That's the age you say. Okay.
Somebody, I was telling somebody the other day how old I was. They were like, "Really? I thought you were 44." And I was like, "I mean, I'll take it, but like, I've been 44 in a while."
So wait, but what hell are you again?
52.
52. Yeah, that's pretty nice. That's
It's,
all
it was
right.
all right. I don't mind it. I mean, yeah. Let me actually thank everyone for reaching out and saying sorry you can't make it to Baltimore and sorry about your car, sorry about your luck, all that kind of good stuff. Thank you everyone for reaching out. Um, yeah, it doesn't. That's the part of aging that doesn't get easy. The actual adulthood stuff. But
Oh, the adulting is the worst part. But I was talking to Jen this morning about young people with guns that go to churches or schools and shoot them up and all that
mhm,
stuff. And she was talking about how she read somewhere that something about I forget what cortex, but some kind of cortex, especially in a male's brain, isn't fully developed until they're like 26 or something like that.
yeah, that sounds right.
Um, and she kept saying how you have to be wary of that, and that comes into context. And I keep thinking, man, this is the barbarian in me. I think you should know how to be a human being by the time you're 12. Like,
I mean, generally, you should know good and evil for sure,
right?
and that's right there. Like anybody, with a gun that just decides to kill people for no apparent reason. There was a shooting, depending on when this comes out, which will be next Monday, but whenever you watch it, who knows when, people on the internet watch it. But there was a shooting this yesterday in Minnesota. I don't remember the exact city, but in Minnesota at a Catholic school, and that's what Dean is referring to.
Yeah. And then I kept saying, and then there was another article about a kid who accessed Chat GPT to learn how to do a suicide, and it helped the kid commit suicide because that's what you do when you go online and you look up stuff and it tells you how to do it without judgment. But it did apparently, according to Jen, said that at one point was like, oh, don't tell anybody if you really want to get it done.
Oh
Because the
boy.
kid asked, should I put a noose out just to ask for help? And they're like, no, because then you won't be able to commit the suicide or something to that effect, which
Well,
is
it's not
insane.
wrong,
And
technically. I mean,
technically, right. And I was saying, ultimately, it comes down to the parents. I think,
here's something funny that happened here in the Pittsburgh area that I don't have all the details because I just barely heard it on the news this afternoon. But apparently, there was a kid at a high school nearby, Shaler High School in the Pittsburgh area. And he had planned on taking, and school just started on Monday for my kids. School's been starting, roughly around the same time. So this kid was apparently going to take a gun to school, and he was out of his bedroom for some reason or other. And his mom saw the gun, and she was like, "What is this?" And he said, "Don't. If I don't take it to school, I'm going to die." Which is the weirdest thing. Like I don't know what that's all about, but the kids,
Wow.
in custody, and I guess they're
Wow.
questioning and stuff like that. It's got to be. I mean, it's obviously a mental illness, but I don't know exactly what the
What
issue was there.
what I would do? I mean, I'm not running a school, I'm not a principal or anything, but you know how they're starting to take kids' cell phones for the day, and then
Yeah,
I guess it goes into a purse with your name on it or something or
right,
a
right.
locker, and then in the day you go pick it up. They should do the same thing with kids' guns.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. My daughter started high school. She goes to junior high school here. She started on Monday, and she was almost late for class because she had to go through a metal detector like three times because she has all these keychains on her backpack and stuff like that. So,
Oh God, remember back in the 80s with Madonna and all these people be
oh
wearing
yeah,
like rubber washers and all kinds of
yeah, yeah, yeah,
trinkets and bracelets and up and down the arm and legs and everything, you know?
yeah.
There's actually a really funny moment in I saw the fifth Final Destination movie,
Mm-hmm.
and those are a lot of fun. And the premise, do you ever see those
Yeah,
movies?
I've seen at least one or two of them.
So the premise behind it is that early on, the audience through the characters experience a horrific kind of accident where a whole bunch of people die. Then you cut to before that happens, and one of the characters has premonitions of this
Right,
stuff. They realize they just saw a premonition, and they're trying to convince the people or the friends or whatever, oh my God, this is about to happen. And
right,
they're like, what are you talking about? So it's the idea that, and the part of the concept of the story is to avoid that happening, that kind of death. But then death is still coming to get you,
right.
right?
You can't
So that
avoid
you
death.
die in other hideous ways that
Right.
was not
Wasn't the
earmarked in that way.
third one was in 3D, wasn't it?
Probably,
As you always have
probably,
to do whenever you have a
of
horror
course,
franchise, and
the
third
third
one.
movie. So, in the fifth one, there was a really funny moment where I was actually wasn't funny because I mean, it's a certain kind of comedy because it's
Sure.
horror, but and it's to its absurd levels in some
Mhm.
ways. But what was weird is that I think this movie came out before this incident happened. But recently in the news, I would say like 2 weeks ago, there was a doctor or a patient or somebody that was wearing some kind of a metal locket or chain or something and was in a room with an MRI machine or
Mm,
walked into the MRI machine when it was working.
mm.
And it's a giant magnet, the
Yeah.
MRI machine. So you can't have any metal in there. And the guy got swooped in and killed immediately, like horrifically, right?
One of my
So,
kids mentioned this. I think, yeah, I think
oh
this,
really?
yeah.
Which is horrifying. But in the movie, which happened before this true incident,
Mm.
there is an MRI machine. And but the thing is, and I started to realize what they were doing until they showed more of it, was that the character that's in the room has a little bull ring nose in his nose and then
Yeah.
earrings in his. So what starts to happen is as the magnet gets stronger and stronger in the MRI machine, like you see a close up and the ring in his nose kind of pulls up and goes
Yeah.
straight, the earrings as well, and then he's like, what's going on here? And suddenly it just rips out of his nose, his ears. Then you cut to his full body and you see where his nipples are. The
Oh no.
shirt basically just kind of points out like that. And you realize, oh, he's wearing, and then they rip out. And then finally in his pants,
Oh no.
it gets like he's what is that called? A Prince Albert or
Prince
something?
Albert, yes.
It was so funny and horrific at the same time. And then of course he gets demolished, you know.
I have to see this movie.
It's and actually it's great because it does that thing that a lot of horror movies do where another topic I want to talk about is weapons. Have you seen
I
Weapons?
haven't yet, no.
It's great. But what movies when they do well, what they like to do is to go back to prequel, like before,
Yeah,
and
apparently this one
explain
ends
things.
where the first one begins, doesn't it?
The fifth one.
Yeah,
So the fifth one is basically the origin of the first person.
right.
And it's interesting how like that all works. And then it gets updated. And they do incorporate technically all the other characters in all the movies without necessarily showing it all, and you'll see why when you watch the
Right.
movie. It's a lot of fun. So weapons was on my list quickly here, and then we'll get to your topic,
Mm.
and then I have two more, and then we're going to do the bigger thing. Um, Weapons is by the filmmaker who did a movie I've recommended called Barbarian. Have
Barbarian. Yeah.
you seen Barbarian, right?
Yes. It's on
I
Netflix before I quit.
I love that movie. I like that
It's good.
filmmaker because he can do horror, but it's also ridiculous. Parts of it are just silly, you
Yeah.
know. And he plays with structure, with narrative structure. At least he has so far in these two films. So I highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun. I don't want to quote spoil anything. Not that there really is anything to spoil because you can kind of guess it, but it's in this case, I realize that his movies are about the journey in a lot of
Mm.
ways, and they are about the
Interesting.
quote revelations, you know. So Weapons was a great movie to watch. Go see the fifth. What was the movie I was just talking about?
Final
Final Destination.
Destination.
So you.
Yeah, I was, one of the things I wanted to try to use this episode is and to do was kind of go back to how we started, the podcast a little bit. And I wanted to kind of dive into how we make comics, like
Hmm.
how the two of us, either individually or together, how we've made our comics together, um, like what techniques work best, that kind of thing. Mostly because I was talking to Matt Major, who was a uh, on our show a couple more than a couple, it's only like 20 episodes ago. Isn't that weird to think
That
that,
is weird.
we've
Yeah.
had like enough people on and we've done enough episodes that you can say 20 episodes ago or something? Well, anyway, so in light of not going to Baltimore, I've just been kind of refocusing for next year, like just like, what, if I do this right, I might be able to have a book kind of debuting. I want to at least do 4 shows next year. And I'm like, I can at least do a book once a show, like a new book once a show, which would be incredible. So Matt's currently working on a book called The Eyes of Odin, Odin, which is Office of Diplomatic and International Negotiation. It's not none of that. It's Gotcha Man. It's G-Force. It's Battle of the Planets. It's like, bird themed heroes, fighting aliens and stuff. That's all it is. So never mind all that. So he's finishing that up, and then we want to jump into Underboss, which is my book that kind of focuses solely on villains, like it's an all villain book, and Stray shows up, I think in issue 3 at some point. Like, I'm like, I want to get these one shots and then, whatever, I'm like trying to do like, and so, I was like, it'd be interesting to kind of talk about how we make, because I mean, I don't think we've ever really talked about it. I mean, there's a part of us probably assuming that anybody watching or listening already makes comics. But there might be that 1% of people that are just like, you guys have never actually talked about this, and nobody's ever brought it up, but like in comments or whatever. But I was like, we probably should talk about the
Yeah,
genesis.
we could talk a little bit about the creativity or what. I mean, I had a moment today, and I'll tell you about that in a second. But the
Yeah,
thing that I'm glad to hear is, you're making lemonade out of lemons, right? And
yeah.
you're
Like
you're
I,
you're, you're actually saying I need to design 2026. A lot of people, I think that 2025 is a bad year. It's been a bad year in comics business. It's a bad year because of our administration. It's bad for many, many reasons, right?
right,
And I think we're all taking the hit, and I'm feeling it. We're all feeling it. So in a way, what you're doing is galvanizing for next year and creating
right,
a plan. Create instead of going, oh, okay, I'll do that, or I want to be there. Well, why do you want to be there? How should you be there,
right.
right?
And I
And in
mean,
that,
no, I was going to say, like, and then the other 2 books are Raptorix, which we've talked about, my
which
bootleg.
is almost done,
Yeah,
but now you have an opportunity to extend it.
yeah, I'm going to actually add 10 pages to it and, like maybe bulk it out a little bit and, tell a little backstory, a little more backstory than what I get into. And then maybe put like a couple pages on the front end, a couple pages on the back end. And then there's the Pay the Devil with Steve Walker, who like he was going to take, we were going to debut that next year anyway, because he
Hmm.
was going to take the year to do it and stuff. So, like it's potentially a lot of good stuff to come next year.
And then you'll feel like it's funny because whenever I've gone to a con, I do want to have something new, or I want to have the new thing I'm selling that year. Like I'm still trying to have at least one comic book a year, and my 2025 comic book is Chest Face, right?
Yeah.
And next year I hope to have the next thing I'm going to launch, and then also I'll try to have like little bits here and there. Like I've created this AI Joe character that's
Mhm.
I think going to officially debut in November here through the Aerotech series, which you can pre-order right now, issue number 1 of 5, with my backup story, AI Joe, and then it's AI Joe is also going to be an Aerotech anthology.
Mhm.
Um, but that's just a character I developed because I was asked to be a part of something, and I was like, well, how I responded in a way, and that's what came out, right? And I guess I could talk a little bit about that, but because there's no real evidence of it except for a couple snippets of images,
You've
I don't
shown a
want to
couple
use
pages
that.
on here as well.
I've shown some stuff, but I'd rather like once people have read it or whatever, once it's been out there, you can get it. I could talk more about that process. But today I had a moment and I'm trying to figure it out because I'm doing this Red Hook comic strip for the Red
Right.
Hook Star Review. And it's an interesting exercise because I'm telling short stories, like real short stories,
Yeah,
right?
like 4 panels.
And like and trying to shove it in and make it visually appealing and yet be some semi meaningful or have some kind of impact. And I just thought of a moment where like how uh sometimes kids, and I don't really try to put kids in my comics, frankly, because I just don't like drawing them because
Right.
they're kind of hard to draw. I
You did that
actually
one graphic novel. What were the Mo and Joe?
Mo and Joe, it was hard for me to draw kids, man. I have to
Yeah,
admit. Like, I think I drew. We can't say midgets any. What is it? Small people,
little people.
little people. Artists tend to draw little people than they do kids, and the ones who know how to draw, like Kyle Baker or Bob Fingerman, they know how to draw kids.
Right.
Anyway, I think I avoid kids like I do horses and crowds and car chases.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I had this moment, and this is talking about creativity, about a kid on the street whose parents aren't helping him with his school stuff, and he sees the Red Hook and he goes, "Mr. Red Hook, Mr. Red Hook." This just came in my head.
Mhm.
Something about, "Can you be my superhero?" And the Red Hook's looking at him like, what do you want me? Who do you want me to beat up, kid?" And the kid looks at him and like a little water in his eyes. He goes, "Can you help me with my homework?" And he wants the Red Hook to be a hero for his homework. Like,
There was
right?
a
And so that I'm just saying really quickly, there was an idea that happened. Now I need to figure out how to make that into a comic. I know I explained it, it sounds easy, but like, how do you set it up? How do you do the middle and the end all in like 4 to 6 panels,
oh, that's what's weird is that I I don't know if I mentioned this on the show or not, but I kind of cut my teeth doing short stories. Like the first thing I ever did was with you, which was 6 pages. Then I had chemistry, not chemistry set. The thing I did with Michel Fiffe,
Hmm.
which was about 6 pages as well. There was a point where I was doing just short stories, Scooby Doo, a couple of
Yep.
different things, and I actually tallied up the number of pages, and I was like, oh, I finally did a full comic, of things that I got published. Meanwhile, like I've always been writing scripts. I've always been, plotting 50 issues of Nightwing, that kind of thing. It's
Yep.
not like I didn't have like I was, I didn't lack for ambition or talent. I just lacked opportunity. So
Mm.
I always like had, the ability to write long form. It's just that a lot of my earlier stuff was short form. And then I think the longest thing I did up until, uh, up until recently, I think would have been FCHS Volume One,
Hmm. Hmm.
which started out as like you're doing, like a newspaper strip, like with we did a prequel comic just to kind of get pre-orders and stuff, and it didn't work. We didn't get the pre-orders, which is why it never came out from Ad House. No, no shame. Ad House was great. We had a free comic book day comic. Like I'll never, be able to say that again. But like I was in a free comic book comic, and people were
Hmm.
interested, and people liked it. Um,
Hmm.
just Diamond at the time, their benchmarks for orders and minimum orders and stuff just didn't, we just didn't do it. So I ended up doing it, self-publishing and stuff. And I think we talked about this last week anyway.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
up until, FCHS, I was just doing short stories. And then I kind of broke it down when we did those strips on Facebook. They were just, I kind of designed the page to be 9 panels. So, or, like a little under, maybe a little bit over. And there's like a 9 panel grid. And like everything, like It's a weird it's a weird thing with newspaper strips is that they have the ability to say an entire, quick kind of quippy, like this kind of a joke. It's joke setup. And like they have like the setup of a joke, but to get you to come and read the next page, the next iteration, the next strip for tomorrow or next week or whatever the case may be, you got to have a little bit of a hook, like a little bit of a cliffhanger or something like that. Just so one of the strips was um, the guys are getting together. They do this thing every year, which was something me and my friends used to do every year. They get together, they get the yearbook that just came out, and it's during the summer, and they start flipping through the yearbook looking at girls they want to ask out. And
Hmm.
so they have this one girl friend who is she's got a boyfriend. She just broke up. Give her, like that kind of thing. So you have like she's arriving with the yearbook, and then like they're looking through, and they're that's one strip, and they're looking through it, and they're like picking out girls to ask out, and then like she leaves. So it's like that's one page. You know,
Right.
so that was the way that we designed those strips. And then like, because we knew that at some point we would want to print them again and like, compile it all together. And that stuff has not been printed, funny enough.
That's that's something to look at, man. And you're talking about format right now. So,
Mhm.
I've talked about this in the past, but when I did my Red Hook series on Webtoon, which is a vertical scroll, just imagine a roll of toilet paper that you're
Yeah.
pulling, right? That could be one panel on top of the other panel on top of the other panel, blah blah blah. So I had to abandon landscape. I had to abandon certain things that work well on the page, but I always drew it for its second iteration, which was print, right?
Yeah.
In fact, it's not been half the Red Hook series online has not been printed, more than half. And someday maybe I'll do an omnibus, right? But while I was doing this strip right now for Red Hook, Red Hook Star Review, I think I've shown this to you, or I've revealed this, but so the strip is basically, if you see my fingers on the video, it's a long, like 10 by 3, like 10 inches wide, 3.5 tall in the
Mhm.
paper.
Right.
Okay. Uh, and I can pull out a copy of it right now. But the way I do the comic is like this.
Yeah.
So it looks like a page. But what I'm doing is you see right here where my finger is, where this would be the quote gutter.
Mhm.
I'm knitting this part, the bottom part, over on top here
Right.
to get your long strip. But I'm also no, in the future, I'm gonna have a collection of Red Hook one pages,
Yeah.
and that's what I'm doing right now is drawing it like this, knowing that I have this one caveat where I have to split it in the middle and see how I can make it all work, and then knit it together and color it and do everything else I do for the newspaper, right?
Mhm.
Um, but there was something else you meant. Oh, there's something so cool about newspaper strip comics, and I before I started doing the Red Hook when a couple months ago when I knew I was going to launch into this, I went online because I can't find newspapers anymore.
No.
And I assume newspapers are still publishing comic strips, but again, I can't find them. But I went online because they're all over the place, King Features and all that. And I started, and there's a lot of reprint, like old school comics that you can still see, Peanuts, all that stuff, Calvin
Like
Holmes,
online.
online.
Uh-huh.
But then I was looking at the new stuff, and I didn't see a lot of the new stuff, but I encountered some of it. Vito,
Whack.
it is so whack.
Yeah.
And that whole thing you said about little mini cliffhangers,
Mhm.
that is out the window.
Yeah.
Like there's three panels, and I'm like, what did I just read?
Yeah.
Why would I read more of this?
Right.
And I know I'm being a jerk by just doing a little taste test, but I'm super forgiving, man. It just didn't have the gusto. It didn't have that old school way of just capturing your something. Give me something, you
Yeah,
know?
like I think maybe not as so much as a part of a discussion about format, but just, before I jumped into doing that with Rachel, Rachel Freyer, for those uninitiated, um, I did a lot of research, and there were still comics and newspapers at that point, like it hadn't gone the way of the dodo yet, but it was on its way out, so there were still few and far between. And like the thing you look at are like you look at Marmaduke or like a Dennis the Menace, and it's only one panel. It's like, how do you tell a story in one panel? It's just
Those are the gag strips where you
yeah,
try
those
to
are just
do
jokes, like that's quick.
just a joke.
And then you start looking at the 3 4 panel Sunday, like the Sunday paper, kind of thing. And like you see how it's, how they get laid out. And it's pretty easy, like I mean, once you learn what the formula is, it's easier to
Well, you can figure out the rhythm, the formula, and the
right.
thing that was also messed up that I believe it was either Daily News and New York Post, or maybe it was just across the board. But the Sunday comics, which are usually a lot longer, and back in the day it was a full page
Yeah.
for some strips. But let's just say you got half a page now instead of 3 or 4 panels across, a tier, right? And you could do 2 or 3 tiers. What they started to do at one point, because they were shrinking the comics and shrinking them,
Hmm.
and as it was on its way out, as you put it, um, they would ask the creators to really actually start the important part of the story on the third panel in case they had to cut the first two out.
Wow. That's
So it's
amazing.
like, are you
When I
kidding
say
me?
amazing, I'm not, and that's not flattery when I say that. Like I'm
Yeah,
just,
I know.
it's amazing. Like how.
Like they just kept snipping and nipping and tucking, and it's just like, why are we making this comic anymore? But I just want to end on our favorite, Mark Chiarello, who
Hmm.
the best art director at DC Comics ever, created such great projects, including what he called Wednesday comics,
Hmm.
which was an homage to Sunday comics, which were the longer, sometimes full page
Hmm.
comic strips. And I so badly wanted to be a part of that.
I bet.
And I have a lot. I remember giving him a call when they announced that.
Mhm.
And I knew it was going to be come out as a newspaper and then eventually collected into its hardcover. And I think it was 12 issues. So basically, each creator or creative team did a 12-page story, let's say,
Right.
right? With little mini cliffhangers, let's say. But I remember calling him up and he took my call and I said, it'd be really great, Mark. He's like, what, Dean? I said, well, I'm a co-founder and basically like a curator slash editor, let's call it, for of Activate, which was a webcomics collective, right? And then you were part of your collective, and
Mhm.
there was a good robust bunch of bands of cartoonists
And
making
there was
weekly
Zuda as
comics,
well.
and Zuda as well. And I was like, it'd be really cool if you got the Activate gang to do, and I couldn't remember if I asked that they would do their own. It would probably be that they would do DC characters,
Mhm.
like, B level, C level, whatever. And he was so nice and so cool. He's like, great idea. I don't think we can do that, blah, blah, blah. And I'm sure he was like, what are you talking about? Like,
Who's gonna buy this basically?
who's going to buy this? Like, why? But again, that was at a time when I used to make phone calls like that, and try things out.
But
What do you
then
get?
this kind of came as a result, I think, and this was Twisted Savage Dragon Funnies. I think Mike Fife,
Michel
Michel
Fifi, that was his
Fife,
that was his baby.
yeah, he's the one that put this together, and I feel like it was as a response to
Well,
Wednesday
I
Comics.
Well, no, I think that's more of a response, and we could ask him, but I think it's more a response to Bizarro Comics
Oh, you're right. You're right. You're right.
which was basically a whole bunch of indie people doing, playing with the DC toys, right? And
Yeah.
like 1 to 5 page comic stories. And then later on, Marvel did it with Strange Tales.
Yes.
And I think it all was semi-spawned by a couple of indie efforts. Kuber Skiber,
Yes.
you know, with the
That
famous
was more or less
Seth
a
X-Men
bootleg,
cover.
right?
That's definitely a bootleg.
Yeah.
And then when me and Chris Pitzer, and I'm forgetting who, I feel like there was a third curator editor of Project
Dark
Superior,
Superior. Yeah.
which was original superheroes done by indie cartoonists,
Mhm.
And I got John Cassaday to create an indie original superhero character, and
Pope did that one too, didn't he?
Pope was in there, Paul Pope, and a
Uh,
whole bunch of
James
talent.
Jean did it.
It's an incredible book. It's great.
Yeah, there were like the first. I think there were like 3 issues. Am I
No, oh, there are three project. There are three projects. There was like
right?
Project Robot,
Right. You're right.
Project Romance, I think, and Project Superior,
Right.
right? But I mean, listen, you and I can discuss this. I'm currently I'm co-curating, co-editing a project that you're a part of that has not been announced.
Right.
The same kind of thing, it has a thematic quality to it. But as much of a headache as those things are, herding cats and like reading everyone's scripts and making sure the layouts work and getting the deadlines and all that. I love anthologies. And I think we could work on an anthology and give it like a few years and
Mhm.
start to get people to do a page, with a conceit, for the
Did you
project.
see the did you see the image that Neil Klein posted on Facebook?
I did.
Like I thought that was very cute and clever.
It's funny because he put up so Neil Clyde, me, Neil Clyde, and Charlie McKelvey about a year or so ago were talking about a project. Uh and I was trying to remember, we had a whole bunch of emails
Mhm.
going back and forth, and I don't remember, I had a Zoom and a talk once maybe, but the idea was to make comics that were in the spirit, in a way, of like Howard Chaykin's Black Kiss. Not
Right.
in When I say the spirit of, I don't mean porno vampire story. More like, oh, that first issue came out in a black plastic bag,
Right.
right? And then creating FOMO and going, what is being hidden? Why?
Yeah, I think we
And
were
then we even
talking
talked
about
about putting
limited print
comics in a
runs.
lockbox, right? So that when people came to buy it, you had to put on like a white glove or something, and a key that opens up a lockbox. And I still think we can do that.
Oh, I do too.
So I think that was the spirit of it. And Neil had written a story. I was thinking of a story, what mine could be. Yours, I could be wrong, but is yours this bootleg comic now?
No, mine was
Oh,
Kilroy is here, which then turned into Pay the Devil.
Pay the Devil, right? So you did do your. I think you're the only one who did one.
Yeah, I did. I like, well, I mean, last year at Baltimore, kind of in the same spirit of everything that Dean just explained, with like the paper bag and everything. I had ordered paper bags. They were the wrong size. Do you remember that? Um, I had ordered a couple things that like I had like a pamphlet holder and it was
Right,
the wrong size.
right,
And I also have like this rack that was perfect. Like it was like a comic book rack for stuff behind me. That thing worked out. And the other thing I did was since I didn't bet on the paper bags being the wrong size. I was hoping they would be right.
right,
But what I did do was I made a blank cover. And what I would do, kind of like an artisan type of thing, I made a stamp. So I ink stamped each copy of it. I didn't sell very many, so like I might have just wasted money making that stamp, especially since I changed the title of the book afterwards. But,
right.
like I was in the spirit of what we were talking about, it just being like this experience of you're not just buying a comic, you're buying like an art piece, basically.
Basically, or a conceit of sorts. Like
Yeah.
like like I said, part of the idea was to create FOMO, which I still think is a good idea, and hopefully we can pull that off in the future. But when he posted that, and I was trying to remember all the conversations we had and how we arrived as something that he was then creating FOMO with the like a little promo
Mhm.
piece, which was fun. And again, maybe we'll revisit that.
Yeah,
Um,
we tentatively, if you look at if anybody's friends with Neil on Facebook, you'll see it. But like, unfortunately, if you're not, there's like a big red X on it, and there is like a fake brown paper bag on top of it, and it's like something like we can't talk about this book.
we can't talk about this.
And
Don't ask us about this book or something.
yeah,
Yeah,
and there was also this idea that this isn't triple X, it's quadruple X. You know,
yeah, yeah.
and not that we were doing like Dean said, we weren't doing pornography straight up. I was like my Pay the Devil, Kilroy is Here was basically a grindhouse film.
Yeah.
Like my idea was like, oh, let me go ahead and do it. I think the other one I had was like reform school girls fighting zombies or something like that.
Right,
But
right.
and the problem with and I've mentioned this on the show before, the problem with my ideas was that they definitely lead to something bigger, like a longer form storytelling. And it wasn't within the conceit of what we were trying to accomplish, which was quick stories that kind of like start and end and then go to the next one. Like I don't know why I kept on seeing this idea of like the old grindhouse black exploitation type of what am I thinking of? Movie trailers that like you would watch, but
Well,
like
it's funny when you talk about grind, like obviously Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino did their Grindhouse
yeah,
movie, and within that, I think they had three fake commercials.
exactly what I was thinking when I was
And
thinking
two of
about it.
them were turned into movies.
Yeah.
I don't think the third one was done, but because it was there was Thanksgiving Day or
Mhm.
something like that. Happy Thanksgiving.
Which
There
was,
was
have you seen Thanksgiving?
yeah, 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 yeah.
It's an amazing movie.
It's fun.
So stupid.
It's so stupid. I really loved, and there were two of these, was oh God, the Spanish guy, the great actor, the Mexican actor, but not
Yes.
Machete. I
Yeah.
think
And
that
then,
was one of the fake commercials that then there were, like I said, two movies. By the way, have you seen Black Dynamite?
dude, I've
It's
been
great.
watching the Black Dynamite cartoons. They are genius.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, they're on HBO Max. If you get a chance, you can watch
Oh,
them.
wow.
They
Okay.
are incredible. Like
Okay.
they're
Good to know.
so amazingly funny. I like just watch them. We'll talk about it all
Okay.
the time.
All right.
But
And I think there was a third one, but
there was
I can't.
Edgar Wright.
It was with Edgar Wright.
Yeah, Edgar Wright did Don't,
Don't, which is
which
great.
hasn't become a film as of yet.
Right, right, right. And then, okay. Well, what I want to do soon, I know we're talking about like creativity, but I think even just talking about ideas,
Mhm.
it does express and show a little bit of our creativity. Like, I'm not gonna right now sit here and like try to write a comic book page with you, just to
No, no, no,
show
no, no,
that,
no. That's
you
not
know.
the point.
I mean, we could kind of do an exercise like that in the future. In fact, what I do want to do is we discovered it's not called live stream. What was it called when we were on the Relay
StreamYard,
podcast? StreamYard. What
Indie
I do
Comics
want to
Relays.
do
Yeah.
is maybe we do three podcasts like this where it's just the two of us,
Mhm.
but we can do a StreamYard where it's live and we can get people to ask questions that we answer live or whatever, but also have guests on in a live way that we can also maybe have a game or participate in kind of some kind of function,
And
like,
folks can donate money. I mean,
oh,
nothing,
what?
nothing.
Money.
Well, they could buy our books from us. That's
There,
fine.
buy our books. Please start there. But I did want to mention two other quick things, and then I want to get into our
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this
another.
is a conversation we'll have, constantly.
Absolutely,
How do we make
absolutely.
comics, and how do, more importantly, I think what we're going to get to at some point is how do you make a comic in 2025 or
How
2020?
not only or 2026 soon,
Yeah.
and then the other thing is, as I don't know how you're feeling, but as I get older, I go, why am I making that comic with my time?
Yeah. That's a good one. We have to, why am I wasting my time on this?
Like, why would I do that? Like, even the little homework thing that I was talking about today, like I know it's a shorty, so that will take me a day or two. I just have to make it good enough to want to do it,
I have a
So
fifth book for next year. I just
what?
realized.
What?
Well, six, because I have Stray. Requiem, I still have those issues, and they're done. They just need to be colored. And then I have Stray the Beast Within. So that's six.
Oh my
Man, maybe I
God.
need to do six six shows next year.
The year of the Vito. You have to split that up into seasons a little bit there.
Something. Yeah.
The other thing, do you have one other
No,
thing that you
that
want?
was really it for me.
All right, so I have two things, and then the bigger thing that we're going to put a timer on because this is going to be a long one, the
Hmm.
next part. I wanted to also briefly mention, have you seen Peacemaker season 2, episode 1?
I did.
Uh, the answer is you just parental control. Just be a parent. That's the
Yep.
answer.
Okay.
Not the question, but the complaint that apparently some people had was, oh my God, when my kid went and saw Superman, they're gonna go look at all the DCU shows and everything comes
Oh,
out. And when they come to Peacemaker, they're gonna see full frontal nudity in an orgy scene, spoiler, but not really. uh, I was like, wait, you're watching you're letting kids watch Peacemaker. Now, first of all, that's up to the parent, right? Okay,
yeah.
and maybe up to the kid, or the kid can sneak peek it, or whatever. We all did that, and in fact, I grew up in a household where I saw a lot of stuff that I supposedly wasn't allowed to see at the time, And we're talking about in the '60s and '70s and maybe '80s, but definitely '60s and '70s. So, I got to see a lot of cool stuff, and it enriched me and brought more value to my life, And so there's spoiler. There's an orgy scene in the latest episode of Peacemaker. In fact, I think there's a new episode tonight. It's
Yes.
Thursday. We're recording. There's a second episode,
Just
but
went live now. It's 9 o'clock.
oh, there you go, 9 o'clock. So, but I saw like some editors of comic books, of Superman comic books, even really disappointed that James Gunn did, or that DC Comics allowed this episode to happen in that way. And I'm thinking, it's HBO, it's clearly adult. It says mature. I don't know what is it R rated or
TVMA.
whatever, or PG 30? What?
TVMA, mature audiences.
So it's not for your kid if that's how you feel. Okay. And like
I
not
feel
every
like,
DC character needs to be, whatever for kids.
right? No, I mean, not
By the
every
way, who knew?
comic
And
is
Peacemaker is
either.
a Charlton character, number one. Number two, it got absorbed into DC. They bought a whole bunch of Charlton characters. Nobody sees Peacemaker even as a third tier character, barely.
So on my phone, here is the home screen of HBO Max. Okay. Right underneath the title, DC Studios Peacemaker, it says TVMA right there. Now, if I click on it, and go to the actual thing, says it again, TVMA. There's
Right.
no way anyone is watching this movie and not being fully aware of what they're watching.
Right.
I'm sorry,
That
TV
what
show.
you're going to get from cursing to nudity to,
And
to
also,
super violence,
you saw it last season. It's the same show, just something slightly changed.
I think they're
Different
arguing
Superman
that.
in this one. That's all.
Right, right. And I think that what they're arguing, their argument is that, well, if you're going to do a reboot of the DC universe with James Gunn, that it should all be consistent. And I don't agree with that. First of all, DC had Vertigo.
That's what I was saying. Yeah.
I mean, just right there. So why the puritanical, and also it was nudity and romance, to a certain cocaine fueled romance, let's call it, right? But it was at that point in the show, people were not getting beheaded.
Right.
Okay, so they're getting a different kind of headed, but
I
anyway.
think that, there is a tendency to clutch pearls, on a lot of topics, across the board. And because the summer that just passed had one of the best, if not, and in my opinion, it's better than 1978, but one of the best iterations of Superman on film ever, if
Mhm.
not second best. And, the thing was highly successful. It's still making money. It's on digital now. It's opened up to a new audience.
Right,
Eventually, DVD sales and Blu-ray sales, it'll go to another audience. And
right.
and the thing is, none of this, none of Peacemaker should diminish what Superman did or is. Do you know what I
Right,
mean? Like
right,
like they're two separate things, obviously. Yes, Superman shows up in a small cameo. The only two characters you really see are uh, Guy Gardner and Hawkgirl.
right.
So that's really, I mean, and the thing is that the guy shot,
Hawker who killed someone in Superman.
and he also like on the heels of shooting
Spoilers.
his father in the head.
Right,
Like it's
right,
it's a it's not a show for kids, and they make it very clear that it's not. So
right.
I don't think I think the pearl clutching is a little too much gatekeeping for me.
And disingenuous. Like
Yeah,
just
yeah.
read the room. Like that's what it is. It just is what it is. And like, maybe they'll do a Mr. Terrific show, but it ain't gonna be like Peacemaker.
No,
And
no.
I mean, and let it just be the different levels. So I don't know. The other thing I wanted to bring up, did you know Mort Todd?
I didn't, and I that kind of I wanted to bring him up as well. I didn't, but I didn't know him at all. I never met him, and I'm wondering, like I know that you did, and you knew him well, and I'm wondering what
I
your
didn't know him well, but I knew him a little bit. To me, he was an enigma. So
hmm,
I'll just quickly talk about Mortad. Mortad passed away a few days ago, shockingly, at age 63 in Portland, Maine. I don't know how he passed away, but he is no longer with us. In fact, I thought it was like, you know, the worst thing in the world is to fake your death and see how people react so that you can be like, oh, I'm alive, but I just wanted to see how you all would react to me. I almost thought that it had to be a prank. Like,
hmm,
there's no way that he was dead. I didn't understand that. He reached out to me in April, a few months
this
ago,
year?
this year, because he wanted me to do a cover because he was basically the producer, let's say, with Mark Zen Ditko of the Ditko universe, the
Right.
Ditko verse.
Yeah.
And they did a Kickstarter where they published or reprinted a bunch of Steve Ditko creator-owned comics, including like Mr. A and Static,
Hmm,
and he did some monster comics, including a giant gorilla named Conga, that apparently he owned.
hmm.
And so they were kind of relaunching that, and I believe that Mort himself colored those pages when they weren't in color or something, and was the guy putting it all together for the Ditko family. And I actually owe a call to Mark Zen Ditko because of reasons I'll get into in a second. But Mort called me, wrote me to see if I would do a cover, and for reasons, i.e., money and time, I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Like it unfortunately wasn't paying enough, and I was in the middle of other stuff, and they needed it, so like it didn't work out. And so he said maybe in the future. But I felt so honored to
Hmm,
be asked to be part of this Steve Ditko, launch,
yeah.
universe and whatnot. But I met Mort in, I want to say, 1995, and I'd known of him. I think I think before 95 or maybe after. I can't remember the timeline, but I believe he was like an editor at Cracked magazine at one point, or
Okay.
Crazy, or one of those kind of like, comedy Mad magazine, not ripoffs, but adjacent
Hmm,
to
hmm.
kind of comics. And he also famously knew and hung out with like Dan Clowes and Peter Bagg, and I think Dan Clowes had a character named Lloyd Llewellyn or something like that.
Yes.
I believe that Mort might have written or drawn some of those as
Hmm,
well at the time. And so he had his fingers deeply rooted in the independent world and somewhat in the commercial world and in the cool world, between a Clowes and a Steve Ditko.
yeah.
And he did all kinds of stuff. And in 1985, he was had a room with my friend Carl Bowlers, who I knew from college,
I
who
know
went on
Carl.
to become, Carl,
Hmm.
who was his assistant at the time, Mort's assistant. And it must have been Carl that either reached out to me or I was talking to him, and he was like, "Yeah, we can get you working at Marvel as an intern once a week." And in 1995, on a Wednesday, I basically interned in that office with Mort and Carl and hung out in the bullpen. And what they were in charge of was what kind of Z2 and a whole bunch of other publishers are doing right now, which is making music comics.
Yeah.
Kyle Baker, that's where I met. Oh my God, why am I blanking on his name? He was really cool. I don't really like his horror movies. He's a rocker who makes horror movies. What he made Halloween, and he did. I hated
Rob
his
Zombie?
Halloween. Rob Zombie. Rob Zombie. Rob Zombie would come to the office,
Hmm.
and there were a bunch of guys in the bullpen that I went to SUNY Purchase with, you know. So it was like kind of like a little bit of a reunion, hanging out once a week, and I got to know some of the other editors, and I never saw Stan Lee there, but I did meet a whole bunch of other cartoonists, and I remember after, and then there was bankruptcy. Marvel went into a bankruptcy, and I lost my internship. I can't even remember if I got paid or not. I might have been paid like $5 an hour or something. But years later, I was at a, I don't know, not CBGB's, but something like a CBGB's in the East Village, I think, or some party. And a guy comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, Dean, what's up? How you doing?" And I'm looking at this dude's eyes. I'm like, I don't know this guy. Who is this? It was Mort Todd. And he says, "Me, it's Mort." And I realized the entire time I worked with him at Marvel, he wore big black shades. I
That's
never saw
amazing.
his eyes, not once. And I think part of the reason why that was so at the Marvel days was because I remember lots of people would just like in the middle of the day go sneak over to Mort's office because he was just either selling or giving them pot. They were just everyone was high, not me because I don't smoke pot, but it seemed like a lot of people were using that to get through the day, you know. But Mort Todd, I mean, there's a lot more to Mort Todd than that, of course. Like he was a really cool guy, uh, and somewhat of a rascal, I presume. And yeah, rest in peace. It's a
Yeah.
bummer that he passed away so young, you know. Anyway.
It's funny, like I always thought Mort was way older than us. Like
Mhm.
way, like I thought he was like in his eight, like just because I think, I wouldn't say traditionally, but there were a lot of Morts in comics,
Mhm.
like Mort Weisinger, maybe that's the only one. So and Mort Weisinger's dead, been dead for years. So I,
Yeah.
I assumed they were like kind of like came up at the same time and stuff. So I had no idea he was that young.
Yep. Yep. No, and again, he has a like the well, I remember one time I drew an OMAC, an homage, or no. What I did is I inked a Kirby OMAC. Like I printed out the pencils, I turned them to blue line. I then did an ink and I put it up as a black and white drawing. And like a week or two later, I get an email and Mort has colored it in this
Hmm.
brilliant way. Just nobody, I didn't ask him to do that. No one got paid. And it was just like this really cool thing. So he would do things like that. He
Yeah,
loved comics, you know?
apparently. Yeah.
So, and also just before we get into this other thing, which I think we should put a timer on, we got to acknowledge that our guy Charlie McKelvey has a Kickstarter right now.
Yes.
Spider Squirrel and Trash Panda Redux.
Yes. They're being rebranded under his Blind Squirrel Comics, which there's Zion Studios, which is the umbrella, but he's now taking Zion Studios to do more like almost like Vertigo in a sense, like more mature, um, less superhero comic booky stuff. And Blind Squirrel will be the arm that does Stray, Spider Squirrel, and the like. So
Right.
yeah, it's up on Kickstarter now. It's doing really well from what our conversation was this morning. So I'll be sure to put that link in our show notes.
Please do. Now, we started this at what time would you say? Should we give
We
this an
started
hour?
just before 8:30, so I'd say about 8:25.
8:25. So, and also I'm gonna get hungry soon. So if it's what time is it? 9:12? Should we say 10:15 at
Oh
most?
my God,
Or 10
no, we
o'clock?
should do, like
10?
yeah, let's go 10.
All right, I got the alarm for 10, and it's gonna tell us to stop. Okay.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why. I have 5 pages,
Oh my
and
God.
let's see. I got 5 pages here of what I'm calling, well, they're comics creators, and we have
Oh,
done a couple of verses. We did
yes.
Marvel versus DC. We did, I don't think we did a versus. I think we did a Jack Kirby top 10 heroes and top 10 villains.
Yes.
And we haven't done any other verses, right?
We didn't
Oh,
we
music. We did a music
did
versus.
a music one, and I mean we did that tournament, for the comics, but that's not a versus really. That's I mean
Oh, and then we did the best comic book tournament, which we can also revisit at some point
yes.
and do another version. So, and actually, you've been sending me, and I've been seeing on Instagram, uh, people doing the music
Yeah,
verses, which has been a lot of fun. And it seems like everyone at the end of the day, I think Stevie Wonder
Stevie
becomes
Wonder.
the winner of almost all of them. It's incredible, and they're not wrong.
No,
You know,
no. I mean, you can't go wrong with any of them, really.
you can't. All right, so I'm going to turn my fan down
By the
here.
way, you mentioned Madonna earlier, and like the 1980s and her style, and I have not stopped thinking about Madonna, like in that era,
Oh yeah,
physical attraction into the Like a Virgin era. Like
yep.
anybody that talks about her like ill, like I still like go back and go, I was in love with that woman. Like I was
Oh
a
my
kid, I
God.
was a child, and like um, I still knew that I was in love with that, in love with her.
No, she was is great, but definitely impactful. I mean, and she was up against again, not really up against, but Michael Jackson, Prince, David Bowie, and she clearly was the fourth person on that Mount Rushmore.
Yeah,
You
like
know?
I don't know if I've mentioned it on the show, but I've had this idea for a kind of Agents of Shield type of story. That's like it's like Agents of Shield meets League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and it's called
Mm,
Agents of Vinyl. I have no idea what Vinyl stands for, but
mm,
there they had like chess piece uh, kind of code names. So King was Michael Jackson, Queen was Madonna, and Prince is Prince. So
mm,
like it was like
mm,
that was their code names, and like they go up against heavy metal, they go up against the British
mm,
invasion, they go up against the PMRC, which is the
mm,
reason why there is a parental guidance on music, like nowadays.
mm.
So like, and it was I want to do it at some point, but like it's so low on my like uh, priority list, that I like
No,
it's
I get it. I mean, that's always a fun project. Even if you just, you have to remember you're writing a novel too right now. So
yeah.
like keep writing, like it doesn't always have to be a comic or visualized. It can be visualized in the reader's head.
Yeah, I just came up with a new actually it was a like I had a title. I'm wasting time. I'm sorry. But I had a title that I came up with when I was in the studio with you guys and Swifty and Greg and
Hmm.
Krista, like that I just always had in the back of my mind. I want to put this, and I have it like on a sticky note on my computer. Like uh, that I was just like, what is that? What is that story? And I just started kind of going through and just going like, all right, what are the possibilities that this can be? And like, I think I have my next novel after this one.
I That's also part of creativity. Sometimes you just put something a note
Yeah,
up on
yeah.
it and you don't know how you're going to use it. In fact, I took a line of dialogue out of this current project that you and I are both in, this
Mhm.
anthology. And it's a really good line, but actually it kind of it left a little sour taste, even though it's a great line. And I was like, what am I going to do with this? And I actually found, oh, you know what? And I put it in my chest face document.
Oh,
Realize I
okay.
think I can use it over here. I just need to find a way.
Yeah.
So,
All right, let's
um,
start.
creativity. All right. So this is comics creators where, like versus, it doesn't mean one is necessarily better than the other. I don't even know if I always get it right who the versus is,
Hmm.
and we can debate that. But I think I did do some interesting stuff here,
Okay.
and this is comic book creators. And I guess the idea is you have to pick your favorite one, and not to the detriment of like, oh, then that the other one you don't pick never made those comics. It's
Okay.
not like it's just that if you had to pick one, you know, and we're going to learn about each other, of course,
Okay.
through this as one does. I had to go right at the top, the beginning. Jack Kirby versus Steve Ditko.
Kirby.
It's it's yeah, it's not, you don't need to think that much about it because of the amount of characters Jack Kirby created that
Right.
resonate, right?
I
So
mean,
like,
the thing that Ditko did, quote unquote, better than Kirby, I would say would be how Kirby used to do those. I always screw up. I always want to say montage, but what is the things that he used to do where you put like a static actual image, recolor it, and then put the comic on top of it? Do you know
what's the process called, you mean? Or
what do we usually call it though? Like it's like we have a
layers, you mean? Or like in
no,
Photoshop?
it was I forget the title of the what we like what we would call it, like where like that one picture where um Reed is like kind of on something and like some kind of transportation, and there's like the
A
actual
collage. A
collage.
collage?
Thank you.
Oh, you mean when
Absolutely.
Kirby would do the collage?
I look at the thing that Ditko did better than the collage was actually drawing it out. You know what
Oh
I mean?
yeah.
Like when you look at the Dark Dimension and like Dormammu's dimension and stuff versus the Kirby collages, I think that's Ditko being better, but I think between the two, Kirby.
Oh, they have their. I mean, they're both incredible. You can't deny them. And Steve Ditko's Spider-Man contribution alone
Hmm.
would like beat everyone else except Kirby
Hmm.
in that way. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? But also, I'm also talking about like their artistic merits and what they do, and you'll see as we
Hmm.
go along. The next one, and again, I could be getting this wrong. So Kirby, I think we both agreed was
Hmm.
going to be the winner of that. And again, this is not to diminish anybody else. The next one is Stan Lee versus Alan Moore.
That's a tough one, only because
Yes.
um, Alan Moore does more in a comic technically than what Stan Lee does. Do you know what I mean? Like,
He delivered a script before it was drawn, number one.
right.
Number two, the kind of scripts he delivered, I think, like, it's weird for me to also think that I think Alan Moore might be the winner between the two
Yeah, I would agree.
because of the work he has produced. Whereas you could say, as the co creator of the Marvel Universe, Stanley wins.
Yeah,
But
but I
but
mean,
because we understand how it worked, I mean, he was a great art director, he was a great showrunner. Of course, he promoted the form, but that's
but
almost
if you
second.
like, even if you took it and just said like pick Promethea versus Stan's Thor, I would probably pick Promethea. I think it's a better read.
It's probably the better comic, but I enjoyed Thor more, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's I'm being a little clinical about it, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah, yeah. So to me, entertainment value is also very, very key.
Yeah,
But I do think, like, when I think about Watchmen, when I think about V for Vendetta, when I think about the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, when I think about it wasn't called ABC Comics. What was it called? Was it called that?
yeah, America's Best Comics, ABC,
America's Best Comics. Those are
like
great
America's Best.
comics.
Mhm.
That's all Alan Moore writing, you know. And yet Stanley had such a flourish with dialogue and hyperbole.
Yeah,
And I love Stanley's hyperbole. Like, you know, that I write like
that's
that.
you. That's
That's me.
your DNA.
I mean, that's a really, really hard one. I, I guess you and I are begrudgingly saying Alan Moore.
Maybe not begrudge. I think I would begrudgingly be saying Stan Lee. Like I'm okay with saying Alan Moore. I think if I picked
I see
Stan
what you're
Lee, I'd
saying.
be like, you know what I mean? I'd
Okay,
be a little bit like, yeah, you got to give it to Stan. But I'm okay with Alan Moore being, the one
right.
between two.
Okay. All right, next one. And some of these are weird, but play along.
I'm good. I'm here.
Will Eisner versus Robert Crumb.
Jesus. It's funny, like you said, Will Eisner, and I was like not anticipating who you were about to say, and I'm like, oh well,
Uh-huh.
and then you said Robert. I was like, "Ooh, that's tough. Um, they both did the same thing in a way, like
That's what I'm saying. Like, they both broke ground big
yeah,
time. I mean, with the spirit alone, and then he did it again with the contract of God, and basically invented the graphic novel.
but he also invented part of the language of how we explain what we do, with
Well, right.
comics and graphic storytelling.
He
Like
also had a famous studio that
yeah,
made great comics, you know.
yeah. I'm gonna
Whereas
say
Robert
I
Crumb is helped break ground not only with underground comics, and the idea of authenticity,
yeah.
and drawing Harvey Picar's first, memoir comics.
I almost would say who would win between, or who's the versus between Robert Crumb and it's like Chris Ware. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Right. And I do wonder, did I assume I have him in here? That's interesting.
because like they both elevate in a way. Not that Eisner didn't, but Eisner,
Right,
Eisner had the benefit of living through the golden, the silver, and even part of the
right,
modern age. Whereas
right,
Crumb, mostly silver, if you could call it that, but at the very least, bronze, tail end silver, beginning of the Bronze Age into the modern age. Not as the breadth of work probably would be so much greater if he had that kind of longevity. But
right. I'm
I
looking at my list and I don't have Chris Ware on here, and I'm always, down to modify. I really like
I
the
don't know
idea
who
of Robert
Eisner would
Crumb,
go up against, though. You know what I mean? Other
but
than
then I don't know who I, right. So what if we play the game right now, and then we'll try to maybe come up with a Will Eisner X,
okay,
versus. But what if it was Crumb versus Chris Ware?
I would say Crumb. Chris Ware, and it also goes to productivity. Chris Ware hasn't put out nearly enough material as Crumb has, unless you start counting like New Yorker covers, which I'm not going
Mhm.
to count. You know what I mean? Or
Right,
like
right,
art that he's done for like This American Life or whatever.
right.
I wouldn't count that stuff. Purely comics, I would still say Crumb.
All right, then
Um,
you know who the Will Eisner versus is, and I'm now changing something later that I might have to. Is it even on this one? That I would have to modify later. I just want to make a note here. How about Will Eisner versus Harvey Kurtzman?
that's great. That is a great one. And I cannot pick, I cannot easily pick one. I want to hear your thoughts before I even, decide what.
Well,
We've already talked about Eisner, but Kurtzman.
so
Um,
Kurtzman, Will Eisner, Spirit, graphic novels, studio, help create the lexicon of comics language.
hmm,
Harvey Kurtzman, great editor, great storyteller,
great
uh,
cartoonist.
broke ground as well with his war comics and anthologies, and the I wouldn't necessarily say he broke ground with Annie Fanny. Is that what it's called? In Playboy.
Yes, yes, I believe that's. I
Um,
don't think that's really. I mean, Mad Magazine alone,
and Mad Magazine, right?
that's
So
that's Kurtzman there.
that's really hard. I don't know necessarily the answer to hold on, let me just circle this.
I think, I think we give it to Kurtzman only because. Oh, I just thought of another one. They both
Who?
had awards named after them. Like
Or,
the Harvey and the Eisner.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
that's
that's right.
crazy. That's
Yeah,
really good verses. I think you give it to Kurtzman only because he died a little younger.
sure.
Maybe. I mean, they both almost contributed the exact same thing.
But I
Oh,
will say this in terms of like if I add the entertainment value aspect. Hold on a second. There's something going on. Do you
uh-oh.
hear that?
Nope.
I think there's some car racing happening, drag racing happening
Oh,
right
cool.
outside the door. It's
Oh,
crazy.
cool.
Will Eisner splash pages, spirit splash pages alone,
Yeah. Yeah.
like are so inspiring to me. And it made me think about anthropomorphizing landscape and objects and
Yeah.
giving character to space, humanizing like or making buildings into fonts, you know? So I don't know, man.
This cover for Stray, Volume 2, Issue 6, was
Yep,
inspired by Will Eisner. You
yep,
can't
of
see
course.
it, but right there it's
I'll
spelled
say
out. Stray.
straight. Yeah,
Yeah.
man. I mean, that's what I mean. Like, I think as much as I love the innate cartoony style of Harvey Kurtzman, which I wish I can get to, I hope to get to in my career someday, is to get it down to those basic lines, just to
Mhm.
tell those little war stories that he did in that way. And yes, all the impact. I think Will Eisner is going to be mine.
Um, I don't want to say you convinced me, but I think you're right.
It's hard, man. That's why we play this game.
Yeah.
So the next one is fun. Although now I just booted Harvey Kurtzman from where his position was with someone else, and I had a reason for that, and then you'll help me figure out his verses.
Okay.
We'll get to that later. All right, ready?
Yeah.
Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster versus Bob Kane and Bill Finger. See what I did there?
The the problem with this one is that Siegel and Schuster work together,
Yeah.
and the other pairing, one did all the work and one took all the credit.
Uh-huh.
And just, the contributions of Bill Finger and Jerry Robinson cannot
Yeah.
be understated to the character of Batman.
Oh, that's good. I should add Jerry Robinson in that.
I think you have to I think you have to give it to Siegel and Schuster just based on their they never stopped being the guys that created Superman. You know what I mean? Like,
That's true, and that's a good answer. But my
might not be the
heart
right answer.
goes with Batman. I'm just thinking Batman and Superman now at that point,
Hmm.
because they were the original text, the origins, like where these characters went. I think I guess the question is, are you a Batman or a Superman guy?
I mean, I'm a Batman guy, but I don't think Batman um owes much, if anything, to Bob Kane. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? And I can't,
but that's fair. That's the good way to put
do you
it.
know what I
You're
mean?
right.
And I
So then
can't,
maybe it is Siegel and Schuster.
yeah, and
Maybe
because
it
you can't
is.
award Bob Kane the win just because his name happened to be, you know,
Right,
on the byline.
right,
I think, Siegel and Schuster being a united front and being, and the things that they created together for the lore of the character. Mind you, a lot of the things that we recognize as being Superman mythology didn't come from them. You know what I mean?
mm,
Like maybe one or two things, but a lot of the things didn't come from them. Kryptonite came from
right,
the radio show. Do you know what I mean?
right,
Like,
right.
but I still think, to give it to Bob Kane, to
No,
give
you're
him
right.
any award is to overlook how he treated his co-creators. I'm just not willing to, as much as I love Bill Finger.
I feel you. I feel you. The next one is weird because I didn't know how to put him in here because we said Jack Kirby earlier.
Mhm.
We brought him up. So my next one is Joe Simon versus William Moulton Marston and H.G. Peter. Joe Marston and Peter, co-creators of Wonder
Wonder
Woman,
Woman. I
and Joe Simon, co-creator of Captain America and Romance Comics and The Fly and a bunch of other characters.
I still think you have to add Kirby because
Yeah, well, yes, but he's in there, but I'm not. I'm just trying to give Joe Simon kind of what his verses might have
I
been.
mean, Joe Simon, I think out of those two, I don't think um no, wait, well, yeah. Yeah. Based on the creations and based on the contributions that they've given to comics, I would say Simon was more versatile, whereas the other two might have worked on other things, but I don't know what they are. Do you know what I mean? Like I couldn't
Yep.
name anything but Wonder Woman and, you know, the things that were in Wonder Woman, in their Wonder Woman comics, I should say specifically. I
Right.
couldn't name anything beyond just Wonder Woman.
Right.
The
Right.
Golden Lasso,
Right.
like, but like with Joe Simon being, here's the thing about Simon, I think that works to your point of keeping his name alone, is that I believe he was more of a contributor and co-creator than Stan Lee. Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
Like,
totally.
even though Stan is, and I'm not taking that away from Stan, I just think that he did more.
Yes.
And I think even, Stan would admit that too,
Sure.
because he worked with both of them,
Right.
assistant editor and stuff. So I would say Joe Simon in that respect, in that one.
Right. All right. So this is a softball, the next one, because it's pretty easy. It's more just a taste kind of
Marcos
softball.
Martin versus Javier.
No,
I'm just
that's in
kidding.
there. That's
Okay.
in there. I think that might be it too.
Oh,
Anyway,
that's funny.
um, Dick Sprang versus Wayne Boring.
Ooh, interesting. Dick Sprang.
And the reason, well, so Dick Sprang famously drew Batman and Wayne Boring famously drew Superman. And I like Wayne Boring's Superman,
Yeah.
but Dick Sprang's Batman was so distinct.
Yeah, absolutely. Like
It's almost Picasso-esque,
the things that you think of in terms of like the 50s and 60s versions of Batman. And I think he came a little bit earlier too. But I think the things that you think of when you think of like multicolored suits and like the big typewriter and all that stuff, that's Dick Spring. That's not
Yeah,
anybody after. That's not
right.
like like that stuff is done earlier and done by Dick Sprang. Whereas with Wayne Boring, I can't I can't think of a contribution that he made to Superman,
Except that he drew
except that he
a good
drew
Superman. So
like
it is kind of a
forever. Yeah.
stylistic choice at that point. So all right. Next one. I hope this is it's interesting. I don't know if it's right. Max Gaines
Hmm.
versus Art Spiegelman.
I don't think that's the right one. Now that I'm thinking about it,
It's not what?
I don't think that's the right verses.
No, it isn't. The right versus probably is Max Gaines versus Harvey Kurtzman, but we already did Harvey with Will
No, it's
Eisner.
not even that. I think it's Max Gaines versus like um
Julie Schwartz.
Julie Schwartz or something like that, or like a uh Major Malcolm Wheeler, you know,
Oh,
the guy that
yeah, but
created.
with all due respect, I think he only created the first two issues or worked on the
Right,
first
right. But
few
I mean, like
issues.
in that respect, like Max
Whereas Max Gaines was like
EC
a
Comics.
Stan Lee of sorts, right?
Yeah,
Like where he was the showrunner of
right.
EC Comics and editor and the tooted the horn and all that and went and fought for it, legally.
I just think that you can't say Harvey Kurtzman because Harvey worked for Max and did his best
Right,
work with Max.
right.
You know what I mean? Like that,
And
like
I was trying to figure out like an EC Comics angle versus like in a way Art Spiegelman's what was the anthology they did?
Raw.
Raw, Raw. So I'm thinking EC Comics
Mm,
horror versus Raw and all the talent that Art Spiegelman corralled with his
yeah.
wife, Francoise Mouly,
Mhm.
who then went on to do the same thing at the New Yorker.
Yeah.
So, and they're doing to this day. So I do see Art Spiegelman. I'm using not his mouse, but his influence and with Francois.
But you can't ignore Mouse in like in any respect,
Of
really.
course, of
You know what I
course. So in a
mean?
way, Art
Especially
Spiegelman
because
might win this battle if we were to keep this battle.
I mean, even if you just said, okay, the anthologies, like put
Yeah,
Mad Magazine or Tales from the Crypt, all of that stuff. Even if you put one of those against Raw, Raw was Mouse. Mouse was in Raw. You know what I mean? Like,
that's right. That's
so
right.
it's hard to divorce, like that one
Right.
piece, that
Agreed
one work, from it. So I would say Spiegelman in that respect.
in that respect. I
Even though like Gaines did and suffered and paid
oh
for a
yeah.
lot, like sacrificed a lot for comics.
But there's a difference, I think, between the material he produced with EC Comics and early Mad. I feel like those stories are much more disposable versus what Spiegelman and Francois Mouly produced with Raw and other anthologies and projects and even their tune books and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, you might be right.
So,
That's a hard argument to that's hard to make an argument against, I should say.
but
Um,
also you're right that it's like it's an odd pairing, and I just was trying to also and for conversation purposes, just to throw a curveball here and there.
yeah, we'll get.
The next one, I think you'll understand why, but I think we immediately know the winner on this one. Harvey Picar versus Stan Mack. Do you know who Stan Mack is?
Yes, I'm just.
So
Yeah, I think it's Harvey.
it's Harvey.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
Harvey Picar famously wrote about 35 years worth of his quotidian life in comics form and had many different artists, including me, drawing his stories. Stan Mack famously did, I think, over 20 years worth of observational journalism for the Village Voice,
Yeah,
where he would overhear all kinds of people, real life stories, people in the street. In fact, he is doing new strips in the Red Hook Star Review that I'm working right now,
yeah,
and I've met him. He's a great guy. Obviously, I knew Harvey, but I do think in between the two, I'm leaning toward Harvey. Whereas Harvey would write about other people. He also wrote about himself a lot. Whereas I feel like Stan, I don't think wrote anything about himself,
hmm.
except one could like construe the type of person he was by where he showed up and observed and reported.
Yeah.
You know,
Stan kind of reminds me of Studs Terkel in that respect,
right, right,
um,
totally,
who was a very good interviewer of the everyman. Um,
right.
and and
Right.
and Harvey was the everyman. So
Right.
I think still that's a Harvey win.
Yeah. The next one I have is a little bit of a softball. Peter Cooper versus Josh Neufeld. Now they both have both done travel comics, travel
Yeah,
stories. They both do political kind of stuff. Peter, you could argue, well, Josh Neufeld has a New York Times best-selling graphic novel with AD,
yeah,
New Orleans After the Deluge, and then he also did other works that were important. And also, the bias is that I grew up with Josh, and we
yeah.
did Keyhole together, and went to high school together, and I just talked to him yesterday. And I think he's a great autobio, memoirist. He also reports important stories and real people's lives very well. Obviously, Peter Cooper, I think, plays a little bit more with fictional stuff. I think he came out with a book recently that has to do with like bugs.
You
It's like
know, as much as I like Peter Cooper, I mean, and I've read a lot of his stuff, but the thing that I like pops out at me is Spy versus Spy.
right,
When he started doing that for Mad Magazine, and like
right,
that's not to take away from his other work or anything like that, but that to me
sure,
is just like what a great pairing. You know what I mean? In terms of like the right artist for the right
right,
property,
yep,
that I think like just whoever put that together, like should win a Pulitzer. You know,
mm.
that said, I know Josh better. I like Josh better. I'm picking Josh.
I know I'm going with Josh too. Yay! I hope Josh hears this someday.
Yeah.
Um, the next one I have, and this is a weird one, and just play the game. Ed Piskor versus Jim Rugg.
I really, really, really like Jim Rugg. Like I just for his wrestling, stuff that he's drawn, like just even like in the margins of a notebook that he publishes, you know what I mean? Like just like a sketchbook or, like as a magazine, like a one-off. Like I love his enthusiasm for comics, if that can be said. Do you know what I
Well,
mean?
but Ed had an
Yes,
insurmountable amount of enthusiasm for comics.
absolutely. And like I think
And for the listeners, Ed Piskor passed away a little over a year ago. He was responsible for. He worked with Picard. I helped mentor him a little bit, and he did X-Men Grand Design. He did Hip Hop Family Tree. I believe that was 3 or 4 volumes.
Mhm.
He recently, posthumously, the family published uh, one of his last works, which was Switchblade something or
Just
another.
no
Shorties,
shorties. That's it.
Switchblade Shorties. Um, he also had a channel with Jim Rugg, and these guys were like best buds, which is why it's an interesting little versus.
I
It's not versus each other; it's just versus each other's sensibilities. I'm I love what Ed did, but I think I lean more toward the Jim Rugg vibe.
I do too. And I think like the true needle mover to Ed would be those like X-Men Grand Design is huge. Hip Hop Family Tree is huge. Like they're just, big volumes of stuff. And it's just the work that he created and the work that he produced, I think, is just phenomenal. Like just I get a kick out of Jim's work. Like I really do. Like
Yep.
I don't feel as not burdened, but like there's a part of Ed's work that just makes me feel like I'm doing work. Does that make sense?
Well, because you know why, and this is, and I think I said this to Ed himself. I feel like part of what he did with X-Men Grand Design and the Hip Hop Family Tree felt somewhat like a Wikipedia entry
Yes.
that was drawn, So it's just here's the facts of the story. And I never really got emotionally invested. I got more
Mm,
emotionally invested in his more personal works,
right.
versus these gigantic Wikipedia entries, you know? So um I'm trying I have a couple more
Yeah, yeah,
if you're able to. Okay,
yeah,
yes.
absolutely.
Um I mean I have a lot more. In fact,
No,
we're
yeah, I
only
know.
halfway through page one, so this is
Of
definitely
one of
gonna be a
five.
series. Yes. Um you ready?
Yeah,
Okay. And this is an interesting one. Dave Sim versus Michel Fiffe.
I'm giving it to FIFA. Dave
You
Sims,
are?
Dave Sims a bitch.
Wow.
He came in, and I'll say it like Dave Sims is to me the quintessential comics gate, you know, like complaining about the new, instead of like, like he came into Hanley's one day and we were, we would order, I believe, service books from him, or through Aardvark Vanaheim, his company, and he came in and he literally said this. He goes, "I can't believe I've lived to see the day where there's no Cerebus on the Jim Hanley universe shelves," and I was like, "Dude, we got work, we work, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like this is our job. Like you
yeah,
can't hold that against us. We can't buy everything. You know what
right,
I mean? Like as
right,
somebody who at that point had done maybe one or two of his own comics, like or stuff that, through Marvel and DC, with like um, the short stories that I did, we couldn't even carry a lot of mine. And I'm there
right,
every day. What do
right,
you want? So
right.
I think
Okay, but personality aside,
achievement wise.
personal achievement, and just to give Fife props, he's always celebrating, like, not only his favorite artists, but odd misfits too.
Yeah.
Like the ones who don't get the love.
Hmm.
So he kind of does the opposite, right? So, but the reason why I picked him this verses is because Dave Sims' Cerebus started off as a Conan parody,
Hmm.
and Michel Fiffe's Copra started off as a Suicide Squad satire,
Hmm.
and then they grew into their own, stories and
Right.
characters and books. And Dave Sim famously did 300 issues of Cerebus
Hmm.
with Gerhard, who did all
Yep.
the beautiful backgrounds. Ultimately, uh, I have never read a Cerebus comic.
Church and State's really, really good. I
I
can
hear it's great.
I cannot take that away from him. And he's got a character that's based on Groucho Marx, and maybe even like all three Marx brothers, if I remember
Oh, I
correctly.
remember that. I remember seeing that.
And like I love the Marx brothers. So I'm very much. I even gave Sim a chance when he did his post service work, and he was doing like these kind of essay comics about like different topics like Crystal Knock and like William Holden or some, I can't remember who the actor was. And like they're beautifully drawn. I got
Hmm.
nothing against the man's artwork. It's his attitude. And I don't
Yeah,
like, and as a creator to not be supportive that comics are still going and to just be like, why aren't you carrying my books?
right,
I want nothing to do with you. You know what I mean? Like,
right. And also
don't get me
when
wrong. Couple episodes ago, I was praising his achievement of 300 copies, 300
right,
issues of a book. I have nothing against the work that he's done.
right,
It's the man himself. You know what I
right,
mean?
right,
And that taints everything about him to me.
right. So it's funny because you brought up Bob Kane, Dave Sim, like definitely their personality or their attitude or bad behavior or whatever. And maybe even a little bit of Stan Lee is the culprit of that, obviously.
Comics are
Um,
full of shitheads
oh yeah, oh
historically.
yeah. But also I do think they both Sim and Fife uh had groundbreaking departures of the
Mhm.
norm. Whereas Sim, I believe, went more literary.
Yeah,
Fife went more kind of bombastic is one word, but more visceral. Visceral is the word
that's
I
a
would
good
use.
word. Yeah.
Like and just more of a gut punch or guttural
Hmm.
visceral, guttural. But again, I've not read Dave Sims, so that's I would pick Fife as well, but I think a lot of people might say Dave Sim for obvious reasons,
You know,
despite the personality thing. So that's interesting. Okay, ready for the next one?
yeah, go ahead.
Evan Dorkin versus Bob Fingerman.
It's a very interesting matchup, to say the least. I I don't know that Bob has ever really, I mean, the venom and bite of Milk and Cheese and all of the little Eltingville Comic Book Club and all the like, and there's the weird thing is I know where Eltingville is. I grew up on Staten Island as well as Evan, and I recognize all those guys in like those comics. And I also like the stuff that Evan did with Sarah, his wife, Sarah Dyer. Um, Bob, though, he's almost like a thinking man's Evan, if that makes sense. Uh, Maybe Evan is better matched up against a Johnny Ryan or a Ivan Brunetti. Maybe not,
Well,
because
Brunetti didn't produce enough work, or else he would have been on my list
good
because
point.
he's an anomaly. Although I have some people that produce small works, and you'll see who they are.
Mhm.
But Evan also did Dork, he did Pirate Core. He's
Yeah,
done, he's known for his humor, his milk and cheese. Eltingville. Bob, most famously known, I would say, for Minimum Wage and a ton of other comics. And he's worked for the mainstream a little bit. He's worked on franchise comics. Um, he's also a funny guy.
yeah,
He likes the humor thing, which is why I think it's an interesting versus. Um, and it's hard to pick, but and maybe it's a little bit of bias, but I think, and I've worked with Evan Dorkin on a Thing miniseries, and he's a
Mhm.
great writer.
Mhm.
He knows his Marvel comics and his DC comics. I loved World's Funnest. Talk about a great
Yeah,
anthology.
yeah.
Um, I I think I'm going to pick Bob Fingerman.
I think so too, and I
There's
think
more theater and I like theater, and I feel like he brings more theater to his comics.
it's so weird. For years, I thought Minimum Wage was autobio. For years.
I mean, kind of, sort
I
of.
mean, yeah, I mean, it's mixed in there, but it's not purely
Right.
auto.
It's not
You know what I
proper.
mean?
Right.
Um,
Right.
and I just, for so many, and I guess I judged it as that, so like
Mhm.
it fit on the same kind of shelf as like a Billy Dogma, which is sort of, I feel like they're the part of you in Billy Dogma,
Sure. Sure.
just
Sure.
like there's a part of Bob in Minimum Wage. I forget the name of the character right now, but
It was Rob.
yes, that's right.
Rob,
So yeah,
not Bob.
like I said, I feel like uh Evan is better matched up with, say, Johnny Ryan or something like that. Whereas Bob might be
Yeah, but just to quickly to play off the Johnny Ryan thing, from what I've read and seen, it's just he's just trying to outdo being. I would do Johnny Ryan versus Ivan Brunetti, and then Ivan Brunetti would win.
right.
Okay, so let's just do that right now. Johnny Ryan versus Ivan Brunetti is
It's just
Brunetti.
it's just poop jokes and
But
but
where Brunetti is, talk about literature. Oh my
yeah.
God, that guy is a genius.
Yeah, yeah, no.
Brunetti is a
I have
genius.
no qualms about
Was it Misery Love? I mean, what was the name of it was called Schizo? I think the name of the comic series was Schizo
I think so.
or something like that,
Yeah.
or Psycho or something like that. And then he did a collection like Misery Loves Company, which is the first, which is those four issues. But he's brilliant. He's veered into a different way of making comics and art. And he teaches, I believe, in Chicago. But Evan Dorkin wins over Johnny Ryan every day of the week, and in
Yeah,
a way,
I would agree.
because of what we like about Bob Fingerman is that what Evan brings to the table versus a
Right,
Johnny Ryan, you
right.
know. So I mean, and they're both great. I just think I veer more into the territory of Bob Fingerman.
I think that's fair. I think that's like, I mean, um if you put the entire bibliography of Bob Fingerman on a shelf, and on the opposite shelf you put Evan's entire bibliography. I think I'm more drawn to Evans because of the way they look, but I think I have more of a relationship and more of a lasting opinion of Bob's. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
Evan is the best of comics in that it's disposable.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I feel like comics should be rolled up, put in your back
Right,
pocket, given to the next guy.
right,
Bob's is stuff that lingers and makes you ponder. And I
right.
think that's what I would choose.
That's a good way of putting it. We'll probably have time for maybe two more, maybe three. This is probably quick. Marjane Satrapi
Mhm.
versus Joe Sacco.
So Marjan Satrapi did Persepolis and Persepolis
Hmm
2, right? There were two of them.
Two, and then some more comics in that vein, I believe.
Yeah, and also there was a movie made of Persepolis, which is brilliant if you've never seen
Right.
it. Animated. Um, Whereas Joe Sacco did books about Gaza, books
Palestine.
Palestine, like uh, Safe Area Grazda, which
Yep.
is I think in Poland, or it's in Eastern Europe at the very least, but I think it's in Poland. Um,
Whereas her art style is more cartoony and simple. His leans more toward like uh Crumb.
it's almost like wartime correspondence art,
Yeah.
like where and I know that's kind of an anomaly in this day and age to think in those terms, but like when
And
you
I originally had Josh Neufeld versus Joe Sacco, and Joe
that's
Sacco would
interesting,
have wiped Josh with the floor on that one, I think,
possibly, yeah.
right?
Um,
Um,
there's another Guy Delisle did similar books about Pyongyang in North Korea. A couple other books like that, and I think that might be the closest um, comparison. He's got a little more of a cartoony style too, so I think
mhm.
Marjan Satrapi versus Guy Delisle might be a better
That would be
visual
better.
matchup, like a
I
better like
think
a
you're
visual
right.
matchup. But Joe Sacco, I think, man, like his books are just you talk about like pondering and like sitting there. The best way I can describe it is when I watched Requiem for a Dream, Darren Aronofsky movie.
Mhm.
After it was over, I was sitting on a couch at my friend Chris's house, and my arms were on the back of the couch, and I could not get up. I felt the weight of that movie for at least 10 minutes. I could not move, even after the movie was over, I could not move. And I feel like that's the best way I can describe Joe Sacco's work.
Oh,
Like
that's great.
it's so like the weight of it and the heaviness of it. And like I like if I think too long about Palestine, I will literally start to like tear up.
Wow.
Like it's just
Wow.
it's so powerful. Like
Yeah.
and I Persepolis, what an amazing book. Like worth almost
Yeah.
every award it won. And it just like fills in a historical moment of time that I have no idea about. You know what I
Hmm
mean? Like I didn't know what it was like during the Iranian Revolution.
hmm
Like how like frantic it was to get out before
hmm
the Shah of Iran's forces come and get you and kill you. Like I had
hmm
no concept of that. And like I told Neil Clyde, and I think I said it on the show when he was on. Um, if not for a couple of his books, I would not know as much about Jewish culture as I do. And it's the
hmm
same way with Persepolis.
hmm
I still, like Joe Sacco's work just moves me. Like, and there's
Absolutely.
nothing
And
better in this world than a film or a piece of music or a comic book that moves you. There's nothing.
right. And it's funny because like I don't usually do political or historical comics, but I have drawn people's life stories or the semi-autobiographical versions of that. But when I did Cuba My Revolution, which
Mm,
is pretty close to Inverno Lopez's story, even though it's a quote fictional character,
mm.
it's very close. Um, I was entering that territory of, Josh Neufeld, Joe Sacco,
Yeah.
Marjane Satrapi, and it's not easy, man. Those are not easy comics to make,
No, no.
and they are important. I think we have time for one more, and
Yeah,
then
there's
we'll
one more.
save this for the next 10 episodes.
We have plenty of material.
This may not be right, but I did it for a certain reason. Ramona Fradon
Hmm,
versus Marie Severin.
that is right. That's absolutely right. Absolutely. I'll say okay. So let's give context. Ramona Freight,
Yes.
um,
Co-creator of Metamorpho. She drew a
with
lot of Aquaman.
right.
She drew the Brenda Starr strip for many, many years. Uh, Tons of other stuff. Marie Severin, great artist. She worked in the Marvel bullpen, and I believe she might have drawn Hulk in a bunch of comics like that.
Yeah, I believe
And I
she
think she did
also,
not Brand X maybe, or she drew funny stuff too.
she was, you know, uh, Marie Severin was very, like when she drew the Marvel style, like the Marvel, house style or whatever. Um, she did a lot of Westerns, if I'm remembering correctly as well, too.
Probably. I mean,
You know, and so she's one of those people that I'm like, Marie could hang with the boys. You know what I mean? Like she
oh,
was
totally.
like one of those like, and like when she drew like comic,
But so could Ramona, and
I'm
did.
getting there, but
Like,
but like with Marie, like when she drew like not Brandeck and stuff like that, she aped that Mad Magazine style, like that Jack
mhm.
Davis, like like she perfect. Yes, our alarm. I'm finishing. Ramona
But
Fradon though, like the thing I love about Ramona is that she was alive to get her flowers.
oh yeah,
You know what I mean? Like everyone appreciated her and like told them how much they appreciate. The only I never met her. The closest,
Ramona,
no, I never
you
met
were
her.
in Baltimore all the time, man, weren't
Yeah,
you?
I never met her.
I used to hang out with her, man.
I know you did.
I bought Krista a piece of her art that
I
Krista
remember.
Sano. Oh man,
Yeah, I didn't know anybody that would, like that, I don't know. But I never met Marie Severin either. But the
I didn't meet
closest I
her.
ever got to, thanking someone for their contributions was Flo. And Flo
Oh,
she
I
didn't do
met Flo.
she
I
didn't make
met
any
Flo.
comics or anything, but she was our girl Flo.
Yep, our gal
So
Friday.
yeah, so I would it's tough, but I think I like Marie Severin's artwork more than I like Ramona's. Like Ramona's was like very clean and very early DC, you know what I mean? She fit right in. Whereas with Marie, I think that her versatility was just like absolutely amazing.
I just have to go Ramona. I mean Marie's incredible rendering style,
Yeah.
unbelievable, and I think was a very good inker too.
Yeah, yeah.
But Ramona was the whole package for me. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, and
I could
and
see
what a
that.
beautiful human being.
Yeah. Yeah.
Took no guff, and yet very much a lady. She might be mad if I was to say that. I don't know. Uh, so we're going to end our comics creators versus on this, and we have plenty of shows for the future. And again, these may not be right combinations, but it allows us to talk about these great comic book creators,
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and
I'm
speaking
very
of,
I'm very interested to see who Chris Claremont goes up against.
oh, I got
I
something.
don't want to even know yet. I'm just very
Oh,
interested.
it's so obvious when you hear it, you can be like, of course,
Okay, well,
of
let's
course.
hold on to it.
And that's it's five away from anyway. Um, Jack Kirby would have been 108 years old today.
Yep.
108.
Yeah.
And speaking of flowers, I know we did two episodes featuring him and talking about him. And happy birthday, Jack Kirby.
We will always talk about Jack Kirby. Like there's just
Always.
like we talked about him earlier when we started doing the verses. Like we'll never there, it's almost like when you like look at your list, you're like, oh, we have, shows, worth of like this list. we could talk about Jack Kirby for every show. Like there's plenty of podcasts that do it, like it's not like,
The Jacked Kirby
yeah,
with Tommy Lombardozzi and Mike D.
yeah,
They
like
do it every week. In fact, they just had their 300th episode aired today with Walt Simonson.
amazing, amazing.
Big
Good for
ups to
them.
those guys.
But
Yeah.
yeah, like we could talk about Jack Kirby for forever. Like I don't think, like I think the thing about Jack is that it goes from opinion to fact to opinion to fact. You know what I mean? Like there's no right or wrong. It's just like we could just keep talking. You know what
Yep.
I mean?
Yep.
But happy birthday, Jack. This one's for you. It's not Jack. It's iced tea and Sprite. Like it's
Oh,
not Jack.
yay, yay.
Hey, yay. Yeah. We'll never flush you, Jack.
Never.
But here, let me swig first. No. Um Next week we'll be on our 34th episode. We're probably going to continue our creator verses, and we'll probably talk about more about how to make comics. How do we make comics? Like it's one of these days I'll have to take that little girl in the back who's now closer to 13 than she is to 3 and talk about how she made a comic when she was 5. So
Yep.
like, we'll have to talk about that at some point. Like basically, um, if you're out there and you're wondering, you can do it. You can make a comic. So we're gonna hopefully shepherd you through it at some point.
Absolutely. And like I just got on Instagram, I got a message from a 18-year-old fan who started reading comics at 13, and he wrote me to thank me for a comic I drew that was different from the other styles, and it encouraged him to want to make comics. And I had to laugh. First of all, that's a beautiful sentiment, and I
Absolutely.
thanked him. But it was the worst comic I've ever drawn.
Justice League?
Just it was Justice League International number
Oh,
24.
was it really?
It was the Maxwell Lord Blue Beetle
Oh
Booster
my God,
Gold
that's
comic that
great.
as you may remember, I penciled it. It was okay, and then I fell off a 3-story building, broke both my legs, my drawing hand, and my lower back, and inked it in a wheelchair with a brace on my hand, and
Yeah,
it looks like that. So to think that
that's
that comic encouraged, this kid is awesome.
yeah,
So
that's amazing.
there you
I
go.
love it. All right, folks, we're gonna shut it down. Kids got to go to school in the morning, so my daughter just went, "Oh shucks." So, thank you, Dean. Thank you, everyone, for
Thank you,
watching. We'll
Vito.
be back next week with another episode. Yay, yay.
It's amazing going to school.
Nighty night.